Give me a second. I'm sorry, I just wanted to start recording.
Okay. I've been kind of experimenting with scripting and finding something that works for me, wording and all that good stuff. So Sunday night, I was concerned because for the month of May, Henry and I are going to do talks on women New Thought leaders for our Sunday talks. And I didn't have anything. I did not have a single idea. So I did a script before I went to bed. And this time I put a timeline on it, which I've not done before. And I said, by the end of either Monday night or early Tuesday morning, I will have 3 names of women New Thought leaders that I can do a talk on.
Sure.
And so Monday, I had some ideas about books that were on my shelves that I could pull out. And then Tuesday morning, I got up and 2 names just went boop. And that was fine. It's fine that I don't have the 3rd name yet, because that's like at the end of the month. So I've got time to get the 3rd, but I was very pleased. These 2 names came right up and it worked. And I said to myself, okay, I need to put a timeline on it every time. Just say, I expect this to happen by X.
So Dr. Wayne Dyer
Yes.
had talked about, actually, he wrote a book. As a matter of fact, it really inspired me, The Power of Intention. And so if you were to script intention, I think that would make it even more powerful. I didn't think about that until just now.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Kim, you're on the call next if you want to, assuming you want to share something.
Sure. I missed the second call. I think, right? Is this the 3rd one?
This is the 3rd.
Yes.
So I'm here to kind of learn more and hear from people about what you've manifested with scripting. My win in the last month is that I manifested a PCP finally, that after being without one for a while. And I'm going to have a physical in June. And there have certainly been some other delights, but I can't attribute them to scripting necessarily yet.
Gotcha.
I love the phrase, isn't it wonderful that? I've been playing with that a little bit. I'm so blessed that, and yeah, but I'm eager to do some actual scripting in a more intentional way.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Linda, you were on the call. You were the next person to jump on the call. You want to share something?
This is my first meeting I'm attending, and
Sure.
so I haven't even started current day, but I'm familiar with. Well, it's more like it's what I'm vaguely doing scripting in my life, I would say. Like I it's more that I'm picking up the energy of what's about to happen, and we're dealing with, in my family, we're dealing with closing down our mother's house, and there's a lot of barriers. And I keep telling my sister, no, I think it's going to be easy. It feels like it's going to be easy, but I don't think that's what you're talking about. And so far it has been easy, but I don't think that's what you're talking about. You're talking about putting an intention and then the channel is open for it to be completed or something like that.
So we will talk about the law of assumption. So assuming things to be. So that is definitely the first thing we're going to dive into. But yeah, we'll talk about in greater detail. But thank you for sharing. And I with any luck, you'll be able to be inspired with the things we'll talk about tonight. Henry, I think you were on the call next.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been curious about scripting, and I have been trying to do something at night. I sort of have my own practice in the morning, my own spiritual practice that I do affirmations and a lot of other stuff that takes me about an hour to do. And I kind of felt that scripting would would take up my morning. It'd be too much. And so I decided to put scripting at night and do my scripting as my evening ritual around 10 o'clock at night, so that I would go to bed and that I would put at least 3 or 4, even sometimes more, 7 or 8 items on my list of affirming my intentions for the next day. So it's been very interesting. I have to say that the first couple of days, it didn't seem like things were working out. But I had a problem that came up on Saturday. A renter says, "Hey, there's a problem. There's something leaking in the bathroom, and I needed a plumber." So I decided that I was saying, well, I could probably get a plumber over to the tenant by Monday. And I didn't like the previous plumber, so I decided to script that I'd find an excellent plumber to do the job, and I was very happy with him, with the plumber that I selected. And what's very interesting, Sunday when I took Betty home, I decided to call a different plumber, and immediately the guy got back to me and says, "How about Monday?" And I said, "Well, that's exactly where I wanted." And so it worked out. He did a great job. He fixed the problem, and he also took care of some other problems that the tenant didn't tell me there was a problem with the sink,
Nice.
drips, and all these other things. So it turned out to be an excellent plumber. He did a great job, and that was my one of my demonstrations. The other was regarding my experience in having my health issues. I'm kind of concerned about my physician telling me, well, you have to lay off the sugar, and I don't want to lay off my sweets. So I did a script of saying, I intend to reduce my intake of chocolate, because I usually eat something chocolate every day. And he said, well, I can do, but I was surprised that my appetite changed when I scripted that I would only entertain chocolate for a couple days a week rather than every day, because I've been doing it every day. I've been eating all sweets every day. And I woke up feeling not willing to entertain something sweet the following day, which I was kind of surprised. So there is something to this scripting that I've been noticing, that slowly my intentions are getting into my mind, and my mind is getting into my behavior, and I am starting to see results, slow as they may be. But so I'm learning to be more specific about what I want and not too general, because my generalizations have been more of affirmations. I'm excited, I'm thrilled. That doesn't get me anywhere, except as far as my health, the things that I do every day. I think I want to be more specific about what my intentions are, and I hope that works out for me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Nuris, did you want to share a story? No? It's okay to be a wallflower if you want to just be a wallflower.
Well, is this Nuri's first time? Is this her first time?
I've never seen her on the call.
Yeah, maybe what it is.
No worries. So my success story. So
Can I ask a quick question for
by all
Henry?
means,
Sorry, is
sure.
that okay? Henry, can you do you remember how you scripted it, like the actual wording you used around the plumber, for example?
I don't have it in front of me,
Yeah.
but I can get it for you.
Okay.
So I was thinking about, so I work at the Hanscom Air Force Base just up the road here from Boston. And I'm having a little bit of an uphill battle with the new job that I have. I work in the marketing department. And I feel like I'm in many instances, a rock and a hard place. But, I've decided that I'm just going to bulldoze and just keep going. Just keep going, because I know that there's a reason that I'm here, that I'm there. I'm there to make a difference. And as long as I'm respectful and I keep to my ideals, things will pan out. But the interesting thing is that I said to myself that, I'm going to make this happen. This is my reality to make. And so I'm walking out of the building, and the base commander, Jimenez, Colonel Jimenez, was walking in with a group of with some other service members. And I know I've met him several times, and him and I have chatted some, so I know the base commander. And he says, "So I hear you're making the marketing department your domain." I said, "You heard right." But I didn't think about that till I was actually walking out of the building. I'm like, wait a minute, that was a manifestation, because I was thinking about me actually taking over the marketing department. Of course, so I'm only a marketer. I'm a marketing assistant. I'm not the marketing director. But I'm acting like the marketing director. And so for him to say, I hear that you're making it your domain. I was like, well, that was a manifestation. That's actually something, that's the universe that actually heard and is now responding. So that's one manifestation. The other manifestation was actually slightly different. I wasn't using, so I've been testing this, and this is something maybe the next call that we should do is around affirmations, robotic affirmations, because they're pretty huge. There's a way to do it. So as I'm driving, it takes me roughly 50 minutes to drive to work. And I always encounter, I'm getting caught behind someone slow, or someone just trying to creep up behind me and just making it difficult. And so what I've been affirming is that I always have an easy drive to and from Hanscom Air Force Base. And I just continue to repeat that, and I don't encounter any traffic. I don't encounter any jerks. Everything just goes smoothly. So this thing about robotic affirmations, hell, I even got the job of using robotic affirmations. Just telling myself, you know what, I got the call, I got a start date. And sure enough, within 45 minutes, the HR person called me to say, hey, we're ready to give you the job. So again, so maybe next time we should talk about robotic affirmations. So, so let's dive into this. So way back when I had learned, I studied the law of attraction for a lot of years. And I don't know how I learned about the law of assumption, or I learned about specifically Neville Goddard. Maybe I was tuning into someone's channel on YouTube, and they were talking about this law of assumption. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And basically, the law of assumption basically says that what you assume to be true will be true for you in reality. And when I started to think about it, I realized that, you know what? The things that I assume about relationships, the things that I assume about life in general, and about a variety of other things are actually how they are. So I thought to myself, did it come from reality that gave me that belief? Or was it my belief or assumption that created the reality? What was it? Was it the chicken or the egg that came first? And I realized that it actually did stem from me. It was my assumption, my assuming something to be true, that actually made it true for me. So I ran across this book recently, and I talked to Reverend Betty and Reverend Henry about this, about Course in Miracles, that talks about, I guess the first lesson is you sit in your room and you look around at the things in the room, and you just acknowledge I give meaning to that chair. I give meaning to that picture. I give meaning to everything in this room. And basically, things come into our lives neutral, and we give it meaning. But it goes further than that. Every relationship that you hold dearly is an assumption. Relationships with your parents, relationship with your siblings, relationship with your kids, relationship with your friends. You assume those things. Because the people could just show up, but if you decide I want to have a relationship with this person, you assume it, and you start to actually manifest a relationship with that person. And at any point, you decide, you know what? I don't like this person anymore. I'm going to dissolve this friendship. You assume it not to work, and now it dissolves itself. Listen, here's something that actually I just thought. I remember hanging out with this friend, and he was doing unfriendly things. I didn't like his behavior. So I thought to myself, you know what? I don't want to hang out with this guy, but I don't want to hurt him. And sure enough, within days, he stopped calling. It's been 6 months since I actually had heard from him. He said, I don't know why I stopped calling you. Why aren't we friends anymore? I'm like, you know what, kid? I'm sorry, I created that. I was bothered by the things that you were saying. And so I just assumed you different. So this really does work. And let's dive a little bit further into this. But it goes further than that, because the things that you assume about life come back to us in form of life experiences. So if I believe that relationships are difficult, they are. If I believe money is hard to come by, it is. It's the things that we actually assume. And it's bizarre how that works, but it does work. The things that we assume mirrors back to our lives. But I think it even goes further than that, because even our own very personalities, if we assume ourselves to be something, we become that. So if I believe that I'm a funny person, if I tell great jokes, if I assume myself to be that way, the universe, God, will actually mirror that back to me. You see how that actually works? But again, it does take some practice, but it's pretty huge when you realize that the things that we assume do come back to us. Any questions? Awesome. Oh, sorry. So
Well, I have a question. I said,
By
but
all means.
also one of the things that happens is that any assumption that you make, whether it's positive or negative, so it's not just that everything's going to be great, but if you don't believe it, it's not going to work anyway. So the law of assumption is that holding an underlying assumption can also pull you back into a negative position. Isn't that right? Because you could be assuming a lot of different things, but what is your controlling assumption about your life?
So interestingly enough, I've shared this. I try to be an open book as much as possible. Is that I've been wildly successful with a lot of businesses that I've launched, and where I have faltered has been with personal relationships. And I always, for a lot of years, I thought, it's not really that important. I do love these people. They're great in my life. I'd miss them if they weren't there. However, I didn't put a lot of value. So I assumed that it was okay not to actually have it. And I realized at the end of the day, how I grew mostly in my life was through those personal relationships. It wasn't business. The business had come and gone, come and go. But those relationships continue to grow if I lend some energy to those things. So in the grand scheme of things, this connection with other people, it really does make you a greater version of you. It's people that help you, not necessarily, well, certainly situations and people. And I've seen some instances where businesses have helped people, but for the most other entrepreneurs, however, in my opinion, and again, I can really only speak from my own experience, it's been those personal relationships that have actually helped me grow, dramatically. I don't know, does that answer your question? I don't know. But again, I mentioned about my friend here, the guy that I was like, you know what, I don't want to be your friend anymore. And so he stops calling. He just loses interest, and he thinks that it's just him. And I even told him, I said, you think that it was you that decided you weren't going to call me anymore, but it was me that set it in motion. So you are, it all begins and ends with you. That's a phrase that I used a lot, or still use a lot, actually. Hope that answers.
I have a question.
Sure.
And it was what I intended to kind of work on in the scripting workshop. So I feel like I've lost my sense of humor. I can recognize jokes and I laugh at jokes, but I feel like I've gotten so serious, I've lost the creation of jokes in me. And I'm puzzled by it. And then I'm thinking, so what, from what you've just been saying, I'm thinking, am I saying I've lost my sense of, I mean, did that make me lose it? Or
Yes.
am I
Yes.
getting too ball? But I'm, it's very analytical the way I'm thinking about it though. And I deal with energy, and that's my MO. Um, it-
So
so
in my experience, if I see something and I take it in, if I internalize it, then it manifests even further. So if you acknowledge, you know what, am I losing my sense of humor? You are starting to lose your sense of humor because now you're actually analyzing it. When you
yeah,
start to
that's what
lend energy to something, you're
yeah,
you're actually making it grow.
that's what happened. One day I thought, where did my sense of humor go? Am I losing it? And then now I'm kind of obsessed with, oh, it's gone.
So again, you're assuming that it's gone, but it's
Yeah.
just waiting there for you to kind of I liken it to actually opening up a cabinet and just letting it out, to air it out.
Yeah.
Any other
Whereas
questions?
I'm
I'm
just
sorry.
fretting.
Any other questions?
Mm.
So I started to say, so no, there's no escaping. Everything about your life is an assumption, and unless or until you change the assumption, you'll continue to your life can't change any different. So the key to success is in life, and this is something I found, is not working harder. It's assuming different. What you believe to be true, you will experience as true, right? So let's dive into the first thing, this scripting a third person, and I have a funny story. I don't know if you all were a fan of Seinfeld in the '80s. So there was a sitcom in the '80s, and there was one episode where this guy was talking about himself in the third person. He talked about his shoes. Jimmy loves his shoes, and everybody, Jimmy's getting mad. And so, and so I used to joke with my friends that talking in the third person. And I usually I'll say something and then I'll just say, you know what? I love talking about myself in the third person because it's funny. Basically acknowledging Linda. That's something maybe you ought to use. Talk about yourself in the third person.
Right,
And then you say,
right.
hey, you know what? I love talking about myself in the third person.
Because that's silly. So that would be funny. Yeah.
So talking about yourself in the third person, scripting the third person is basically you as the director, you as the writer, and you're standing off your task to actually write this play that someone's going to play out. The thing is, so you were, say for instance, you were the person in the audience and you're looking at these two characters or several characters on stage, and you're the one that's actually scripting out. However, the main person that's on that stage is also you. So let me give you an example here, because here's something that I scripted out. Now, let me see. So just so you all know, in a couple of weeks, I think on the 16th, we're going to do a law of attraction in-person meetup. I'm going to do I'm going to put some marketing out, invite a lot of people down. We'll go to, hopefully we'll meet downstairs at Unity Somerville, and we'll just exchange some ideas about law of attraction like here, but only in person. I think it's long overdue. There was a group that used to meet a lot of years ago in Boston every month, and they used to get about roughly 30, 40, 50 people. And it was a great group, and they would just introduce different things, different types of methods, and different people that would actually kind of do energy work. And it was a great time. Every time I went, I always had a good time. The unfortunate thing is, I think the person that used to run it left the market, and there was no one to kind of pick it up and run with it. The group still is out there, however, they haven't done anything in more than 4 years. All right, so sorry, I didn't mean to go headlong into that. So what it all boils down to is, I've spoken to Reverend Betty, and we've confirmed it. So it's on May 16th that we're going to meet at Unity Somerville. So everybody in Market, you're invited to come to Unity Somerville at 7 o'clock on May 16th.
Is
And
there a
those-
possibility you'll be doing it again? Because I'm out of town that weekend.
Yes, because I think that, again, I think that's long overdue, that somebody actually kind of takes the baton and runs with it and kind of creates this thing. Because it really is, there's a need for it. So many people will love to learn about the law of attraction. Or here's something. So I met someone at a party. I wasn't going to go to this party. Again, here's another success story. On Sunday, I was invited to this party. This woman had a stroke and had survived it, and she's now in the process of recovering. But she's taking it, it's slow. It's a slow recovery. But she was up and about, and she can communicate some. And so it was basically a party to generate funds for her recovery. And I knew that some friends were going to be there, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to go, but something was saying you got to go, and I'm glad I did. So I'm talking. I sat with a friend, a good friend. He's a DJ, and his girlfriend comes in, and she says something interesting. She says, what you think about, you bring about. I'm like, what did you say? And so for the next 30 minutes, we're talking about the law of attraction. I was like, oh, I love this. I love having a conversation. And so that's the long and short of it is, you want to talk to other people about this stuff. And because it's fun to talk about and fun to learn and fun to just, to share energies and share stories and all this stuff about the law of attraction. So I think it's long overdue, and I think that Unity Somerville deserves to have it there. So that's what my plan is.
Ray,
Yes, ma'am.
you need to send me a flyer. Just a
Sure. All
reminder.
right. So the flyer is already made. I'm sorry, because I promise you, as tonight before I go to bed, I will send it to you.
Yay, thank you.
So my script, scripting this third person, is about that meeting or that meetup at Unity Somerville. So let me read this. Ray stood at the back of the room for a moment, just taking it all in. Rows of chairs were filled. The buzz of conversation, laughter, and energetic exchange filled the air like electricity. And every person in that space had come for this, a law of attraction meetup born out of one simple idea Ray couldn't shake. What if we built something consistent, inspiring, and magnetic right here in Somerville? Now here it was, reality. He'd felt this coming for weeks. The viral chatter online, the sudden influx of RSVPs, the local influencers casually mentioning the event on their pages. Even the cafe down the street had a flyer up with someone scrawling, "Can't wait for the LOA meetup," in pink ink next to it. By the time the event began, the space was electric. Ray welcomed everybody with his usual grounded warmth. He didn't need to hype it up. The energy was already sky high. Person after person shared their story. As guests mingled, asked questions, and took notes. Ray knew something had clicked. This wasn't just an event. It was the beginning of a movement. By the end of the night, the people lingered. No one rushed out. Attendees gathered in circles, trading numbers, asking about next month, volunteering to help, and hugging Ray like he was a lifelong friend. On his way out, a woman stopped him. "Ray, I don't know how you did this, but this night changed something in me. I'll be here next month. I'll be here every month, and I'll bring people." Ray smiled and thought to himself, I manifested this. I used the law of attraction to create an event around the law of attraction. So that's kind of lengthy, and you really don't need to have it that long. However, that's basically, it. You're creating, you're scripting out something in the third person. And I found it a little bit easier to script it out as opposed to me doing first person. And we'll talk about the first person, by the way, scripting as first person. But scripting it out like you're actually looking at something, like you're watching a movie,
Mhm.
And scripting it out kind of makes, I think it makes it for some people, and even me, in some instances, that it's easier for me to script out me looking at a screen and just describing what I'm seeing and some back and forth with people in front of me. Does that make sense? Any questions? No? Okay.
Yeah, Ray, yeah,
Sure.
I like the idea of scripting in the third person. I sometimes I feel uncomfortable sometimes affirming my I, saying I'm delighted, I'm thrilled to have this or have that. But if I say my name, and it sometimes works better for me. Sometimes you're right. Scripting in the third person, I'll have to use that more. Try that again. I think it does. For me, I feel more comfortable with using my name in as far as doing affirmations or doing scripting, as opposed to using I.
You know, at one point, I actually, I scripted out something way back when, and I called myself Roy.
Mm.
I'm like, you know, I wonder
Oh,
if
got a
just
name.
testing it by actually changing the name slightly. And this, like I remember this girl, her name was Ida, but she had this more bolder personality. She called Cynthia. And so when she would say something outrageous, she would say, it's Cynthia that's actually talking, not me. And so, so I thought, wow, you know what? That's a form of scripting. You're actually, it's like this alter ego. Is that what it is? The alter
Yeah.
ego. So when you write your own version, describe the emotions, energy, outcomes as if they already happened. Let the
Mm.
world catch up to your assumption.
Mm.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, so script in an imaginal scene. So again, I'm a follower of Neville's teachings because certainly I have created success with law of attraction, but this law of assumption and something that we'll talk about here, the imaginal scene, is things that it's something that I've actually used and I've actually created success. So one of the things that I would like to kind of point out is that what we're doing here, folks, is kind of like hypnosis. We're doing some self-hypnosis here. And I don't know if you all follow hypnosis and how it works. Certainly, what always stands out in my mind is that the guy on stage is making people act like chickens, and or the one that actually where this guy who's bulk, who's he's a weightlifter and has a lot of muscles, and he says, "Put your hand on the desk." And it tells him that you can't lift it, and then the guy can't lift it. No matter how hard he tries, he can't lift his hand off that desk. And it all just comes down to just this hypnosis, just telling your mind it's something. And so if this is kind of what we're doing. We're actually telling our minds, telling our subconscious that this is the way our lives are. And if you do it the right way, you can actually change your life around. So I mean, I think that's what we're trying to do here with our scripting, is it trying to change situations to actually work in our favor, or certainly make things better. But and there's really no it's sky high. I mean, there's so many things. Anything you can manifest anything using this method. And so my thing is that test it. Always test this stuff. So the imaginal scene. The imaginal scene is a short mental movie. Again, the imaginal scene was something that Neville had talked about in his book. I think even in his first lectures, he talked about this the ladder method, where he suggested everybody imagine themselves climbing a ladder for 3 nights and then write, I will not climb a ladder around your apartment or house. Leave little notes as a reminder, you will not climb a ladder. And he says that just about everybody that actually did this would actually end up, without knowing it, end up climbing a ladder. Even when it was bizarre. And I never did test this, but I've tested with other things, and it does work. So this imaginal scene is short, a mental movie you create in your imagination. It's a moment that you picture in your mind as if if your desire has already come true. It's like mentally watching or acting a clip from the future, but the future is the one you want to create. And so you certainly could imagine in your mind, but in many instances, when I'm actually writing something, I'm actually, as I write the words, it's actually firing in my mind as well. And in some instances, I'm actually picturing the thing as I'm writing it out. So this thing about scripting your imaginal scene can work two ways. No, number one, while you're writing it, it actually creates a scene and actually you're impressing it on your subconscious mind. But that imaginal scene, you could actually turn around and actually, before you go to bed, this is something that Henry was talking about. If you actually read that before you go to bed, you're actually impressing it on your subconscious mind. And there's a good possibility your manifestation will manifest more quickly.
Mhm.
So some of the rules you might want to keep when you're to think about when you're actually writing this imaginal scene. And by the way, this is all part of that handout. Again, if you go into, if you click, what do you call it, chat, there should be a link to it. And if you click on it, it should bring up in your browser that, and then you could, I think, right click or you click edit or file, and you're able to download it into your computer, or if you got a printer hooked up to your computer, you're able to print it.
Are you saying we're supposed to write the movie scene and imagine it?
Say again?
Are you telling us to script it and imagine it?
So, yeah, if you can imagine while you're scripting, sure. So, all right. So let me just map out some rules, and then you'll get. Hopefully, you get a better idea what I'm talking about. So you keep it short and simple. Just 10 to 15 seconds long is enough. Like in your, so it's basically a short thing. And I'll even give you an example. A friend congratulating you, holding a paycheck, receiving applause, using yourself as a first person point of view. So, me having a conversation with someone, or someone handing me a check, or someone congratulating me, or perhaps maybe someone engaging me. Someone said, hey, I think you did an awesome job the other night, or I love your work, or whatever have you. The imaginal scene doesn't have to be long. Doesn't have to be, as a matter of fact, it's best that it's actually very short. Because what you want to do ultimately is repeat it. So you have this imaginal scene, either scripted or you imagine it, or I guess we're talking about scripting. You script it out first, and you could just read it over and over again. And at some point, you can actually know what's already written down. Then you can actually replay it in your mind. So this thing about, again, circling back to self-hypnosis, this thing that I was doing by reaffirming or robotic affirmations, I'm actually hypnotizing myself. Basically telling myself this is what reality is. And this imaginal scene works in the same premise, where you're repeating this short story, and you're impressing it on your subconscious mind. Does that answer your question? So imagine the scene through your own eyes, not watching yourself like a movie. Again, this is your scene, first person, you as the person that's actually living it out. Feel the emotion, let yourself feel the excitement, gratitude, relief, pride, whatever emotion fits the desired as fulfilled, whatever you would be feeling as you playing out that scene. And again, this is something that he suggested, he being Neville Goddard, and certainly how to actually make it work. And again, impressing it on your subconscious mind, repeating it often, especially before you go to sleep. And again, the best time to actually do this is just before you go to sleep. What's happening is that you're in this, I always forget, I think it's the alpha brainwave, which you're shifting out of the waking state into going to sleep. And so your brain waves are actually shifting, and you're more apt to your mind, your subconscious mind is then open to impressing something on it. So the best time is actually to kind of replay that imaginal scene or read your imaginal scene before you go to bed, before you go to sleep specifically. So, and then you want to make it natural. Don't be needy about it. You want to actually like it was actually something you're experiencing or something you have experienced. What did I say? Don't beg or wish for it. Imagine it as if it's already done. and you're just remembering it happening. So let me see if I can give you an example of mine.
Great. Can I ask your thoughts
By all
about
means.
the timing piece, or any of you have like the divine timing, like you can script and imagine and script and imagine, and some desires seem to manifest, take longer to manifest. And I wonder what your thoughts and experiences are with that.
So what I've experienced personally has been this, because I believe in divine timing. However, I also believe about this, this something I've talked about previously, about this double-mindedness. So I wake up where I want my life to be in a certain way, but throughout the day, I'm doubting it. Like, oh, is this going to actually happen? Look at the situation I'm in. So I'm constantly seeing what's in front of me and taking in what's happening, because my manifestation my thing has not manifested. So again, when I first wake up, I'm like, oh, I want this is going to happen. Or even before I went to sleep, I had imagined, I had played out my imaginal scene, or wrote it out, or read it before I went to sleep. But the following day I wake up, I'm like, this is never going to happen. That double-mindedness, whether you're conscious about it, if it's not manifesting, again, I can only really speak from my own experience. I can tell you that throughout the day, I'm doubting it. I'm acknowledging the 3D. I'm acknowledging the things that I want. I'm acknowledging that I don't have the things that I want in my life. And here's something you might consider doing. Way back when, I had a one-on-one coaching with a woman, and I told her, I mentioned to her that whether you realize it or not, there's a lot of things going on in your mind throughout the day. You're not even conscious about it. So what I want you to do is that tomorrow, or in the next couple of days, I want you to take notes. As your mind is wandering, go ahead and write down what your mind is wandering about. And you'll realize that throughout the day, you're talking yourself out of success.
Yes.
That double-mindedness is there. So I believe that things do have to come about. So you're trying to manifest something, and God, the universe sets things in motion. It's starting to come your way. It is yours. However, you're talking yourself out of success. And again, I can only really speak from my own experience, but I can tell you, I've caught myself I'm like, why am I thinking that? Why am I want this. This is what I want. Why am I talking myself out of success?
Thank you. That's great.
Anyone else want to share their experience?
Can I add something to that? Because I mean, I've did a lot of work in manifesting without scripting, but there's also a piece in us that we may want something, but we're not ready to have it. It's like, if you're looking for something that it says the universe is open to give you everything, but it's also helping you to be prepared to get it. And you also should, just because you don't get it the next day doesn't mean that you're not going to get it, but you have to be prepared to get something that you really want. For example, you want a job that you want that's going to pay you $75,000. But your job that you have right now is only $50,000. Are you going to jump from $50,000 to $75,000? You know what I mean? It's something. Are you prepared to move from where you are to do what is necessary to get to the next level? And I think that's also important to keep in mind. Is that we have to be prepared to do the things that are necessary to get to the next level, or get to the things that we desire as well. I don't just think it's just going from 1 to 2 and that's going to be it. I just sit back. It's like a person sitting back. Well, I'm waiting for it to come to my house. There's something that you got to prepare for, and you actually actions that you have to take to get there. Are you doing whatever you need to do to get there, what you want to happen in your life? I think that's a part of, that's my take on it as well. When something doesn't happen right away.
Sure. So did someone else ask a question? Because I'll speak to this. Betty, you're muted.
So I was going to share one thing that has worked for me when those doubts come up is to acknowledge the doubts and the fears. And I had forgotten that when I did my affirmation or my scripting, that I was going to get these 3 women new thought leaders. I also wrote down, I kind of put it in parentheses, this feels like I'm forcing it. But by acknowledging that, I let it go. I didn't think about it the rest of the day. And then when I got up the next morning, the 2 names came right to me. So I think it's important to acknowledge that these doubting thoughts are coming up. And it's almost, I call it the committee in my head. And there are times when I say to that doubting thought, go sit down. We don't need you right now. Go away. Shoot. So that's
So
how
listen, I've studied the law of attraction a lot of years and certainly have done my fair share of working with the law of assumption. And I do agree with Henry. However, I think in the grand scheme of things, that in itself is a belief that you actually have to become someone different. And I listen, I do agree, and then again, I don't agree. I don't know. I'm on the fence about this. I'm on the fence about this because I realize that if I want a loving, passionate relationship, I have to be the man that's in a loving, passionate relationship. If I want to be a millionaire, then what's his name? Jim Rohn had said, those that actually come into money right away, win the lottery. At least you become a millionaire, or you will lose the millionaire, or lose the million that comes to you.
Yeah.
And so I believe that there is some sort of growth. So even if it was just manifested, just showed up, and you're going to have to become that person that has it, or you become that person prior to actually receiving it. But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, really, we all want to become a greater version of ourselves. And so if you have a desire and you're setting it in motion by lending energy to it, you're one way or another, you're going to have to become a greater version of yourself to have that.
Mhm.
Whether it just shows up and you become the greater version, or you become the greater version and then it manifests. Hope that makes sense. Yes. Anyone else? So I think that's all right. So the imaginal scene. So what I did is I went back to my experience with having this law of attraction meetup at Unity Somerville, and I just created that imaginal scene. So I'm standing near the back of the room, just soaking it all in. The space is buzzing with people laughing and connecting, inspired. The energy is electric. Someone walks up to me smiling, wide-eyed, full of emotion. She says, "Ray, I don't know how you did it, but this night changed something in me. I'll be here every month and I'll be bringing people." I smile, my chest swells with gratitude. I nod and say, "I'm so glad you came. That means a lot to me." She gives me a warm hug before heading off to chat with someone new. I look around again. People are still talking. No one wants to leave. This is exactly what I saw in my mind weeks ago. So this is now mind you, that's pretty lengthy. However, what I would do out of that imaginal scene is probably just a woman that approaches me and that dialogue. So by the way, so not only, because I know the 2 things that we were going to talk about was the imaginal scene and that dialogue, but this is a combination of the 2. It is the imaginal scene because it's short and sweet, but it's also me engaging or me actually having a dialogue with someone. And so here's something. I remember a friend of mine saying that he didn't have much of an imagination. And I asked him, I said, "Can you imagine a conversation you're having with me?" He said, "Yes." I said, "That's imagination." It doesn't have to be a visual thing. It could be an auditory thing. You could actually be hearing a conversation in your mind, and that's still imagination. As a matter of fact, in some instances, it's more powerful because if you're imagining you and I having a conversation in your mind, and you continue to replay that in your mind, there's a good possibility that's going to manifest. Because number one, you and I are friends. Number two, we talk on a regular basis. And number three, this is something you genuinely want. So having, I didn't even think about that until just now, but having that dialogue is pretty powerful. So imaginal scene, bring it in with an imagined dialogue, I think is pretty powerful. So if I could just combine those two things, because I mean, again, that last one that I read is basically both. It is the imaginal scene because it's short and sweet, and number two, it is a discussion or a dialogue that I'm having with someone else. Any questions?
Yeah. Um,
Sure.
it sounds like all your examples are about attaining a concrete thing, even if it's a conversation. So I'm imagining it would be more effective to write a script about attaining a concrete thing versus, well, I would like to be a better person, something in order to get this thing. I mean, you don't plot out, well, I'd like to become the kind of person who will attract this thing, but you don't, it's not about the thing. The script isn't about the thing.
So the deep dive that we did prior to this one, we talked about self-concept, scripting out the self-concept, because whether you realize it or not, hey, I have no qualms about jumping into this because I'm passionate about all this stuff. So whether you realize it or not, Linda, you are living out your own self-concept. The thing that you imagine yourself to be is not far from what you're actually living. And you think that, this is my life. This is the way I am. But you don't realize that you're the one that actually set it in motion. That at any point you can actually tell yourself, I want to be someone different. I want to be X, Y, and Z. And if you were to script that out, this guy, so here's a book that you might want to, I mentioned this in the last meetup, or the last time that we met up with the Zoom, was Psycho-Cybernetics. This guy, Maltz, Dr. Maltz, had written this book in 1960. He was a plastic surgeon, and the thing that he discovered that some people, after getting things corrected on their faces or their bodies, some actually changed their self-concept and others did not.
Yeah, I read about that.
And so he dives headlong into this whole thing about actually imagine yourself being something else. And the first thing he suggests is in the book is that you pick out someone that you like to be like. This person is funny. I want to be like him. This person is more loving. This person is more affectionate. This person is whatever. You decide this trait in someone else that you'd like to apply yourself. And then the next thing is that I start to, here's something that actually amazes me. In the book, he also talks about golfers and athletes. These guys, it's football players doing superhuman things, for Christ's sakes. I was like, this guy jumping through the air and I saw him, he was running on the field and he keeps jumping over other players. I'm like, wow, this guy's like superhuman. But you know what? He imagined himself to be that. And what happens is that when you start to imagine yourself being that person, your muscles actually start to apply, or your muscles actually start to grow in that direction. This guy, Neville Goddard, actually talked about this guy who wanted to be more bulky. He wanted to have more muscles. So he imagined himself being that. And slowly but surely, he didn't just grow them. He was inspired to actually, I guess this guy actually had ended up buying a house and it had its own gym. So this thing, these bridge of incidents that actually kind of come together to get you what you actually want in life. So yes, it doesn't have to be a thing. It could be a trait in you. It could be greater health, where you were actually, here's something, I heard about this, where this guy had actually scripted out where his next visit to his doctor was to say that, oh, I can't believe how you're looking so much better. Let's or whatever was ailing you actually you seem to have gotten better. or you've recovered, or you've heard about miracles, these people that have actually cured themselves. Well, it starts with them actually imagining themselves different. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyone else? Any other questions? So yes, very passionate about this stuff.
And you can buy that book on Thrift Books, Psycho-Cybernetics.
Yeah.
He talks in the book.
I just found it.
Yeah, so the newer version, he talks about that, nobody, it was in this small section in a bookstore. And yeah, you were hard pressed to find anything about self-development. And now there's an entire section in bookstores that actually speak to self-development or personal development. So, all right, I mean, that was all that I had kind of mapped out for tonight, unless if anyone else has any more questions about it, or certainly I can share more experiences. I mean, I have, like I said, I've manifested a lot of things. Even the experience with this job, that there's a hiring freeze, or Trump had been elected to office and decided that he was going to put the kibosh on any new hires. Those that were hired within the year, he was going to let go, and those that were about to be hired were just not going to be hired. And so every time something came up that they was going to put the kibosh on this job, I would manifest it past it. And even to the extent of, here's something. I went in for my in processing, and the guy at HR, he had 10 other people that he had to kind of process, but I was the first one. So he goes into the system and he updates everything, and him and I sit in a conference room. When he comes back, he's now locked out of his system. I was the only person that got hired that day. So, I mean, again, and listen, I got 1,000 stories like that, how things just, and it all stems that, you know what, no matter what, this is mine. I'm claiming this is mine. And in my mind, I'm already there. So this thing about actually kind of having some sort of belief that, your thoughts do create, and things that you lend energy to do manifest or come about, there's so much truth to it. So much truth. Hell, that's the reason why I'm here talking about it tonight, because I can speak from my own experience. And certainly so one of the things you all should know, way back when I actually was teaching a class for 18 months, I brought in adults, or I invited adults to come in, and everybody that used the things that I was teaching actually took their lives to the next level. It's a shame that I didn't stick with it. Where would I be now? I'd be Tony Robbins, the Latin Tony Robbins, I call him. Hispanic Tony Robbins.
So just go back, just start over again.
Well,
Right.
again, I just, I realize now I can do good things at Hanscom Air Force Base, but here I am tonight teaching again, and certainly, with your help and Unity Somerville, we'll start bring the stuff in person, and just start a community and maybe a movement where we're actually teaching more and more people about the law of attraction and how to consciously create their lives, because there's definitely a need for it. Definitely a need for it.
I just put in the chat, someone made me aware of this new movie called The Manifesting Movie, which is supposedly a follow-up to The Secret. So I'm just sharing a link to the trailer in case anyone wants to look at that.
Thank you. So yeah, this something that I noticed that a lot of the folks that weren't part of the movie, or even those that were part of the movie, had decided to actually do their own thing, and it's all inspiring. But the thing that I've actually noticed is that they weren't as successful as Rhonda Burns. I think that everyone was lending their energy. There was so many people that were lending their energy to that documentary, and I think that's the reason why it was so much more successful. I honestly, I wish these other folks were just as successful. Because again, I think that we need this in the world. People need to know that they can actually change their lives from the inside out.
Well, thank you, Ray, and thank you, everybody, for sharing your stories.
You're very
Yeah.
welcome.
Welcome.
Now, where can we go to watch? 'Cause this manifesting movie is just a trailer.
Yep. The
Where-
someone, I'll forward you the email I got about it, Betty, from one of my teachers, Marcy Scheimoff. I'm in her year-long program called Your Year of Miracles, and she sent this around, and supposedly you get a free screening of the movie. I don't know if everybody gets a free screening, like if it was like a promotional trick or whatever, but I will forward the email to you.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
sent me to make me aware of the movie and the link to watch it.
Yeah.
But what I share in here is the trailer.
Yeah, and Marcy's one of the ones, wasn't she in?
Uh-huh.
Was she in The Secret?
Yeah. Yep. She
Yeah.
wrote a book called Happy for No Reason, Love for No Reason. She was
Yeah.
a Chicken Soup for the Soul editor for years and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Great, excellent.
I'm actually
Yeah.
trying to bring it up here on my manifesting full movie. Wait a minute. Is this the full movie?
And I'm wondering if she is the one while Ray's looking for that. One of those women in The Secret had scoliosis or something, and they had a really severe spinal problem, which healed.
That's not Marcy, but
Okay.
I didn't
I'm
remember that part.
trying to remember who it was, but yeah, this really works. And even Charles Fillmore said, we don't really know how this works, but we just know that it does.
Mm.
And what Myrtle said in her writing in one place was, we're living in this consciousness almost all of the time.
sorry.
We haven't quite learned how to stay in this consciousness all the time. So they would have their doubts from time to time too. But she said we can almost be in this consciousness all the time. So you work at it, you practice.
I think
Yeah.
it does take practice.
Like Ray was saying about the double-mindedness, the Esther Hicks and Abraham, they talk about, we're always looking at what is, instead of remembering to focus on what we want.
Yes.
We keep looking at the 3D evidence and saying, well, this is what's possible, instead of
Yes.
taking it to a new level by affirming what we want instead and keeping our awareness and
Right.
focus on that.
Yeah.
So I remember them
'Cause-
actually suggesting that, for the next 30 days, shut your television off, shut your social media off, don't answer your phones for the next 30 days. Certainly do handle your responsibilities, but close as much as possible, close off the 3D, close off your life and do more internal work. It was like, wow, I wonder who's going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I teach this stuff and I'm telling you, it's difficult.
And we might as well let go of what is anyway, because what is for me is not what is for Henry or Kim. What is how we're looking at it.
And one of my teachers, Mike Dooley, says, what is what we thought about before. So like,
Yes.
look around and what you're seeing is evidence of what you thought of already. So there's nothing new about it or like progressive about it. It's like we're here to keep expanding life. And so we're generators of new thoughts and new ideas. But what we see is what we've already manifested. So it's interesting to think about it that way.
I talked about, I think in the last session, talked about how I was having, I didn't even know about this. I didn't know about scripting, but I got the nudge from spirit to actually kind of write two people different. One was a DJ that I was working with, and he was being difficult. And then there was another one where this woman that I was interested in. And so I scripted them different. And within 30 days, they started changing according to the things that I wrote on that paper. But you got to stick with it. Otherwise they'll go back. They'll revert right back to the old people. But I always say that you're in your own personal movie, and you're the main character and the director and the writer. And again, I would suggest you all just test this stuff. You have nothing to lose.
Trippy to think about
Yes.
influencing other people's behavior. That's hard to believe, but you're saying that happened, huh?
I'm saying that happens often. Or whether you realize it or not. All right, so here's a great example today that happened today. I'm thinking of how I am influenced, or how I am the person that I am in the marketing department here at Hanscom. And this person who's outside of me has mirrored back what I've been thinking. So if I were to proactively, consciously create someone else in my mind, that person should act differently as well. Again, I would suggest you test it, even if it was something simple. So here you go. I remember hearing a story about this woman who said that every time she went to, it didn't matter what kind of store did she go to, people were always difficult. The salespeople were always difficult with her. And a friend said, "I don't understand. I go in there and they're happy to serve me.
Nice.
What is it you're doing that I'm not?" He said, "What is it? It's you. You know, I told my sister this recently. Wherever you go, you take yourself with you. And whether you were, Abraham Hicks would talk about, they mentioned that, you know, you're pre-paving it. They talked about pre-paving in a positive way, but really you're sending it out ahead of yourself. Like, oh, this is what I always say that, expectation is a powerful creator. So if you expect traffic to be bad, it is. If you expect the market's going to be, I know market basket is always busy. However, I hate it when they're rude. I hate when people are rude and, they're just running up and down the aisles, almost hitting me. That bothers me. But again, expectation is a powerful creator. When I say that, I'm going to
Yeah.
walk away with a good experience, I usually do.
Yes.
So I think that, I think we do influence
Yeah.
people and things around us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like
I
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I scripted Market Basket. I
Please
did
share,
because
please share this,
I
please share.
did because I had to go typically, or it used to be typical, the pandemic messed everything up, but I used to go really early in the morning on a weekday to do my Market Basket shopping, and that way there weren't a lot of people, and it was just easier. But lately, I'm having to fit in grocery shopping different times of the day, middle of the day, the busiest day of the week, all that. So I started, actually, what I did was blessing. I blessed all the people at Market Basket before I went down there. And there were a lot of people, but they were all mannerly. Everything was moving at a slow pace. I didn't feel pressured. And that issue seems to have gone away because now when I go in Market Basket, it's a smooth and easy process. So yeah, that blessing is a great way to script situations.
Repaving.
Yeah.
Mm.
And when it comes to another person, would you say, I love how, like, John, for example, I love how John, like, is suddenly appreciating my work. Like, if you're talking, like, would you script it like that? I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
John is suddenly appreciating my work now and praising
Yes.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If appreciation is what you want from John,
But I mean, is that how you'd literally write it? Like, I'm so glad, or I love that, or I'm so grateful that, is that the scripting you would use, Ray?
You could. I mean, so if I was wanting, all right, so here's a good example. So when I was in the nightclub business a lot of years ago, I loved attention. I loved that people knew who I was. And when I got out of the nightclub business, nobody knew I was a nobody again. So my thing was when I took on this job, I said to myself, you know what? I want people to know who I am. I want people to appreciate the things that I know, the skill, and the things that I bring to the table. And guess what? They do that, including the commander. The commander of the base acknowledges me for the work that I actually do at Hanscom Air Force Base.
Is that, but how did
Wow.
you actually script it?
All right, I would say, okay, all right, so let's do this. I'm happy and grateful that I am, oh, geez, I'm drawing a blank here. I'm happy and grateful that people acknowledge my skill. I love that they love the work that I do. I'm grateful for the the good that I do, the things that I bring about. And I love that people are constantly thanking me for it. And that's kind of egoistic, but you know what? It's my world to script.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you want a specific person to do a specific thing, do you script that or you just leave it open to like, I love how my coworkers appreciate me or my family members? Like, do you leave out as a specific person?
So, I mean, we're adults here. Way back when, again, I told you about somebody that I had script out. And I remember actually just thinking, imagining something. Because, all right, so this woman had gone away. She was bragging about going away for the weekend to the Cape. I'm like, why am I not going to the Cape with you? What's going on there? Why am I the odd man? Why am I on the outside looking in? And it bothered me. Sorry, again, I'm just trying to be open here. And I imagined her and I being together. Don't you know that the people that were hanging out with her decided that they didn't want to be there anymore. And so the weekend was ruined. She called me and we ended up being together that weekend. So, but I was in my mind, I was firm in how it would play out. Not necessarily because I can't. Again, I Neville would talk about start with the end in mind. Actually, there was a book that 7 Laws of Success or something like that. Covey had actually wrote it,
Yes.
and he
Yes.
talked about one of the things that you want to start with the end in mind. And Neville will actually talk about the same thing. And I would suggest you always, and this, you listen with the imaginal scene, you want to, that should be the end. This is the thing that you're experiencing. You can't worry about how you get there. So Kim, what is the end game? What is the end experience look like? Is it him acknowledging you? Is it her actually saying thank you for the things that you bring in my life? What does that last scene look like? Don't worry about how you get there. Just
Mhm.
that last scene is what you wanna focus on.
But my question is like, can you influence a specific person or
Yes,
should
you
just,
can.
I love how people appreciate me, but if you're wanting John to appreciate, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, like I told you, this woman had gone away for the weekend with 2 other friends, and she on Saturday I got the call, and she and I ended up together. So I would like to think, how does that happen? There was there was a lot of little things that had to take place. There was an argument. There was there was all these things that took place. And listen, I feel bad that I feel bad, and then again I don't, because that was my manifestation, and things unfolded as they should for her and I to be together that day. So can you influence a certain person? Yes. Yes, you can.
all right, thank you.
Ray,
Yes.
that was helpful about visualizing the very last scene, because I'm imagining a script about getting back to the more original direction my art was taking.
Yes.
And then when I do that, I keep imagining, I mean, this is not, I'm using that word because this is how it's been working out. I'm imagining the attention, and it feels overwhelming. And then I keep hearing myself say, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. So I don't know how I would write a script because all that gets in the way unless I start at the end. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So the thing about having a script, usually it isn't just one and done. You got to be able you got to be consistent with it. It's unfortunately, it does take some work. You script it and then you got to either rewrite it or you got to continue to read it.
But you're reading the end result, really. The script
The-
is the end result,
The script is the end result. Start with
not
the
the step to change your mind or all that stuff.
No, because that's Abraham Hicks would say that that's not your job. Your job is to focus on the end.
Uh,
Your job is to, what's the experience look like? So here's something. I suggested to my sister, and I think I even wrote it on my Facebook wall, is, have you ever practiced just being happy? What's the difference? If I were to say I'm happy and I just wallow in happiness, I'm feeling happy. And if I continue to do that, then happy experiences are actually just going to show up, because I'm sending that out, and God in your universe is going to send it right back to me. So
But when
my
I think
suggested
about
practice being
success-
happy.
But when I think about success, it's just scary. It's just, that's all that comes up is fear.
Well, I would
Oh my
suggest
God, I'm
continue to practice
successful?
it.
Oh my God, no, no, no.
Well, you realize, but you do realize you're
Right.
keeping it from you by actually being that way.
Right, which is
And so
fine.
perhaps
because I'm
you got to
not
script
scared.
yourself. You script yourself as you. I love success. I'm glad that my arms are open wide, or wide open to success, and I'm accepting it. It's become second nature for me. Success is second nature for me. I'm looking forward to the great things that God is going to deliver in my work, in my friendships, in my health.
Mhm.
I think it's all doable. It's all manifestable.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to sign off, but I appreciated everything.
You're welcome.
Thank you for showing up tonight.
Thank you, Kim.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye. I was going to share a follow-up to what Zoe was sharing. One of my favorite affirmations is, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So
Well, I've
long-
heard, if she can do it, if he can do it, I can do it.
That's right. So many years ago, when I was working for Fleet Bank, sometimes the workload would get pretty heavy. I had 5 vice presidents that I worked for, that I managed an office for. So we would hire a temp sometimes to pick up the load. And so it was around Christmas time, and the boss of my bosses came up from Rhode Island, and he brought these big jars of some kind of candy, I forget now, and he gave the bosses Christmas presents, but he didn't give me one. And I didn't care. I wasn't, it was fine with me, but this temp was very negative energy. And she said, well, he didn't give you anything. And so I was trying to think of a way to just kind of cut through all that negativity. And so I said to her, well, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And that sort of quieted her down. And then the boss didn't stay very long. He left. And in a minute, one of my bosses came out and said, here, I don't want this. And he gave me his job.
I don't
So
know if I
that-
shared the story. That I went to a party, and my friend had been there earlier, and he had come with gifts. He had caps and shirts. And unfortunately, I showed up late. He had already left, and it turns out he actually had one for me, but didn't leave it because he didn't know whether I was going to show up or not. And so I thought, I want a hat. I just like a little kid, I want a hat. And so I'm sharing with the guy that's hosting, who's also a DJ, and I said, Mike is very generous, man. He brought, I see he brought hats and shirts for everybody. He says, you didn't get one? I said, no. He said, come on. And he walked me back and he gave me the shirt. And, well, I didn't take the shirt, but he gave me the cap. The cap is what I really wanted. But this, I had in my mind, I got a cap, and sure enough, a friend, my friend actually gave me one. He gave me his. So yeah. Manifestation can actually work quickly. Especially when you're pouting. I want one. In mind. In mind. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up, but I appreciate your time. I appreciate you showing up tonight and definitely your input.
Yeah, good.
So,
Thank you.
Again, so
Should-
Unity, our next meetup is going to be at Unity Somerville in person on May 16th, and probably at the end of the month, May 30th, around that time, we'll do another meetup on a Zoom, via Zoom. Because I love sharing, and I think this is, I wanna stick with stay with the momentum. And if I commit to it and keep putting it out there, this thing will continue to grow, and I'll be able to inspire more people.
Yes. Thank you for your time and your work,
Thank you.
Ray.
Yeah,
You are
thank
very,
you.
Great.
you're very welcome.
Thank you a
So y'all
lot.
have a blessed night, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah,
All right.
Okay.
okay.
We'll
Yeah.
see
Night,
you.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Night.